Okay, so we're going to talk a few minutes about this question and about our word of the day. Bailiwick is how you say our word of the day. Anybody know what part of speech it is? I feel like I should move this over here so Aaron can see. Anybody have any idea what part of speech it is? It's a noun. Very good. All right. Anybody have any idea what it might mean? Yep. Area of expertise. You must have looked it up. You did? Cool. All right. So bailiwick is like your area of expertise. If you have a bailiwick, then that's something that you're good at. Logan's maybe volleyball. Okay. So that's what bailiwick means. So if you saw that in a passage, you would now know what it means. All right. Now, let's look at this question. Fahrenheit and Celsius are related by the formula F equals 9/5 Celsius plus 32. There is one value of X degrees Fahrenheit that equals 1 degrees Celsius. And then here are your answers. Negative 72, negative 40, negative 32, 0, or 32. What'd y'all get? Okay. Okay. So here's what I want you to do while we're talking about this math strategy. I want you to think about some strategies of how you could have solved this. There are multiple ways to solve this, but does anybody, if you solve this question on the ACT, how would you go about attacking it? Guessing, okay, that's one, but not always your best strategy, but it is a strategy, okay? You could guess. What else could you do? Yes, we call that back solving. So we pick one of these and we plug it into the formula and see which one works, right? All right, so what did you get, Sophie? You said B, negative 40. Okay, so let's see if negative 40 works. And I'm going to move it over here. Anybody else put B? What else did y'all put? Y'all didn't do it? E, okay. All right, so E, and then would you put negative 32, Grace? Okay, so let's just plug in B just for kicks and giggles. Let's try. All right, so 9/5 times, right, negative 40, because I'm going to plug in B, negative 40 plus 32. All right, so this problem tells us that there's one value where Fahrenheit equals Celsius. So it's going to have to, if this is going to be right, then this is going to have to equal negative 40. So that's kind of our check. You see how I did that? All right, so y'all help me solve this. How can I do this? I can simplify, right? Am I right? All right, so what's 9 times negative 8?
Negative 72.
All right, negative 72 plus 32 equals what? Negative 40. So what's the right answer? B, negative 40. Does everybody see how I did that? Okay, so here are some math strategies. I want you to go in your OneNote to your bell work section where we have our strategies. So here is what that strategy is called, back solving. And I'm writing this, and I know it's tiny for you. But you can, here's what, I'll write it up here where I'm gonna write. All right, so back solve. I want you to write this, back solve if possible. And I will write what back solving is, all right? Pick a number from your answer choices and try to solve the equation. All right, that's what back solving is. So it involves looking at all of your answer choices and maybe picking one of them, and you can back solve when you have an equation. That's really one of the only times you can back solve. But you look at your answer choices, and if you absolutely have no idea, just start with the first one, plug it in, see if the equation works out, if it balances. So in this case, we knew that our equation, whatever we plugged into C, had to be the same equal for F. So if we plugged in negative 72 here, then it had to be 9/5 times negative 72. So you can, that's called back solving, is when you take one of their answer choices and you plug it in and you try to solve the equation. And that's a great math strategy. It's something that I want you to employ when we do math. Okay, let me write that. So put that in your brain as a math strategy and put that in your notes. When possible. I'm writing this in here. Pick. Okay. That's on there. Okay. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to get out your English books and we're going to fly through chapter 1. If you have a highlighter, I would love for you to have your highlighter out. So here's what I want you to do. While we are in this English textbook, I want you to highlight what we talk about so that, and here's the reason why. On the day that you study for your ACT exam, I'm assuming it'll be like the night before your ACT, you'll want a few things to look over. I'm trying to give you tools to refresh your memory on that night. I've given you some reading strategies on a card. I'm going to give you some math strategies on the card. But in your ACT English book, I want you to highlight. And if you don't have a highlighter, I've got extras. So I want you to highlight the things that we talk about because I think they're important. Okay? So here are extra highlighters. Anybody? Anybody need one? You got one?
I got the reading book.
Reading book? We don't have a reading book.
I got it for the because I am.
So you don't have that, you don't own this, is what you're saying.
I got the
Okay.
reading book.
Okay, so you need to get this as soon as possible. I maybe, I don't know if I can run all copies because I think I've written all in mine. But I'll figure that out. But until then, you get it, okay? All right, so let's talk for just a minute. We're gonna fly through. I'm gonna go through one last time. Parts of speech, and then we'll move onward. Eric, will you be able to see if I turn off this just so they can kind of see that? Are you okay? Okay. All right. So stay with me here. And remember, we talked on Friday about how I really need y'all to be engaged in class. Like I need you to, when I'm asking questions, I need y'all to answer questions. That helps me know that your wheels are turning. Okay. So this is the very first part of the English book, and I'm just going to run through this. We've talked about this already, but I'm going to run through it again. So I'm on page 11, okay? So just follow with me. So welcome to the English section. Prepare to have fun. English is amazing, right? You'll see. I like to throw things in there. All right, so what's a noun? Who can tell me? Very good. Person, place, thing, or idea. All right. It is always preceded by a, an, or the, most of the time, not always, but most of the time. And you're going to find, I'm going to say this a lot, there's always exceptions in the English language. So you can't really ever say always. But a lot of times, if you have an article, we call these articles A, N, and the. If it's before a word, then that word that follows it is usually a noun. That is an indicator to you, hey, this is a noun, all right? Now, here we have concrete nouns and we have abstract nouns. Abstract nouns are words like imagination or love or joy. And a lot of times words that end in T-I-O-N or M-E-N-T or I-T-Y or T-U-D-E, those are generally abstract nouns. The reason why I bring this up is because sometimes you can kind of forget that because you can't see or touch it, that it's a noun. But even if it's an idea, it is a noun. And I don't want you to forget that. Nouns are important to us because they are what part of the sentence? The subject, very good. And ACT loves to test subject-verb agreement. And so the reason why I'm spending time going over nouns is helping you identify what the nouns are because that will help make you an expert at identifying what the subject is. Okay, proper nouns. What are proper nouns? They are specific people and places. And what does that mean? And they should be capitalized, okay? Mobile versus city, right? Mobile is a specific place. It's a specific city. The word city could be any city in the United States. Cottage Hill Christian Christian Academy. It's a school. It's a specific school, so it's got to be capitalized versus just a regular school or any old school. It's not specific, so it doesn't have to be capitalized. Miss Carter's versus teacher. Now, the reason why I say this is because we live in a world where you see signs like this. What's wrong with this sign?
I hate when I do that.
I do too. And y'all, people, this is like becoming more and more common. I don't know if like texting or social media has caused people to forget stuff. Tell me what's wrong with this.
Everything.
All right, give me one.
The one side only and plate are not
Okay, so, right, so let's start here. Plate is a common noun, should not be capitalized. I get capitalizing all NOTs because you're emphasizing something. What's wrong in the third line? Trey, what's wrong in the fourth line? Right, what's wrong in the fifth line? And what's wrong in the last line? Only. Okay, y'all, this is so common. And the more we talk about it, you'll like drive around town and be like, they've capitalized something. I see billboards all the time with mistakes, capitalization mistakes. The only words that you capitalize is the first word of every sentence, right? And then proper nouns and then proper adjectives. So the proper nouns are those specific person, place, or things. And then proper adjectives are adjectives that are formed out of those nouns that are describing nouns, okay? That are specific person, places, or things. Okay, what's wrong with this one? Can you see it?
Why did they capitalize deserving?
What?
Why did they capitalize duty and deserving?
Right. All right, there we go. All right. So what's wrong with, it doesn't drive me crazy that quiet please is capitalized, but what's wrong with the rest of it? What's wrong with the second line? Right, and probably others should not either, but I don't know, unless they're thinking, oh, it's the beginning of a new line, but I can't really even say why others should be capitalized. What about in the next one? Sounds in the stairwell. What's wrong with that one? Sounds is not a proper noun, right? What about disturbing to those working? And then what about in offices nearby? Yeah. So that, I mean, and you can see, like Mary's saying, why they capitalize these and then not that? They weren't even consistent in their incorrect capitalization, were they? So they messed it all up. Okay. All right. Well, there we go. All right, so what is a verb? Somebody tell me. I'm just running through this really quickly one more time. Yep, it expresses action. Verbs, they indicate action or state of being. I'm on page 11, so you might want to highlight that definition up there where it says verbs indicate actions or state of being, and it gives you some examples. Y'all see those? Those examples are all what we call the infinitive form. Anytime you have the word to in front of a verb, that's called the infinitive form. And it can help you determine if a word is a verb. Does that make sense? So if you look at the word running, you say, is running a verb? Can I put to in front of it? Can I make a form of it? To run. Yes, I can. So therefore, it's a verb. Does that make sense? So, but verbs don't stay in the infinitive form, do they? They change forms. They're metamorphic, right? They change on us depending on how they're used and depending on what subject they are paired with. So we call that when a verb when it changes, when it becomes metamorphic, we call that conjugated in English, right? And so we can conjugate verbs by adding INGs to them, adding EDs to them. If they're irregular verbs, then we change them, right? So here we go. Here are infinitive forms: to be, to have, to seem, to go, to run, to laugh. And I told you last week, the two most tested verbs on the ACT are what? To be and to have. They have them all conjugated in past, present, and future in the bottom of page 11. So I might just box those with my highlighter, okay? All right. Most tested verbs on the ACT, to be and to have. Why? Because they are irregular. Know them. Okay, so highlight the present and past conjugations of to be and to have on the bottom of page 11, which is what you're doing now, so I get to go on. Okay, something else you need to know about that we are going to talk a ton about when we get to chapter 8. And that we are actually going to fly through this. So you got to stay with me and be engaged, okay? Verbs also have what we call number. Should be a review for you. What does it mean for a verb to have number? And Ella, you should really know this because you've been in my English class and we talked about it last week. Right, they can be plural or singular. So just like nouns can be plural or singular, they can have number, so can verbs, okay? Now, when we're going to talk in just a minute in chapter 1 about how you make a noun plural or singular. Just, you know this, how do you make, for most regular nouns, how do you make it singular or plural? Noun. Add S or ES to make it plural, right? Now, verbs, however, their number is absolutely the opposite. There's a general rule for verbs and making them singular or plural. Anybody know what the rule is? It's the opposite of how you make nouns singular or plural. Think about it. So to make a noun plural, you add S or ES. To make a verb, you do conjugate it, but it's the opposite of the noun rule. So to make a verb singular, you add an S or ES. Okay? So verbs plural, take away verbs singular, take away the S or ES. Nouns plural, add S or ES. Let me give you an example, because I'm like mixing it all up. All right, I'm going to do a very simple example. And I use this with my English class. All right, so what is the subject of this sentence? Dog. And what is its number? Right, it's singular, just one dog, okay? Now, the dog runs. This is correct. So here is the rule. To make a verb singular, you add S, which is the opposite of what you do with nouns. To make a noun plural, you add S. But to make a verb singular, you add S. Everybody following me? All right, so runs, this is singular, so this equals. Let me show you another example. Now, does that sound right to you? The dogs run. Is that correct? Yes, okay. So what is our number here? 2 or more, right? So it's plural. I'm just going to put a P. Now, see, if we follow this rule for general verbs, to make a verb plural, you take away the S or ES. So then, therefore, this one is plural. So that is subject-verb agreement. And we're going to talk a lot about subject-verb agreement. But I just need you to know for now that this is, and this should be at the top of page 12 in your book, if you want to highlight, number refers to whether a verb is singular or plural, and it gives you some examples with some pronouns. And if you see that second paragraph, you want to highlight that. Note that third person singular verbs end in S, but third person plural verbs do not end in S. And it gives you some examples. Okay? Any questions? So to make a verb plural, you take away the S. To make it singular, you add an S. So opposite of nouns, to make a noun plural, you add an S. To make it singular, you take away the S. Everybody got it? Everybody put it in your brain, okay? Because it's going to be important. And here's what you need to know. I'm laying it. You already know this. I'm reminding you of it, and it's going to get more complicated. English is going to build on itself. So make sure that you understand what I'm talking about before I move on. Everybody understand? Okay. All right. Verbs also, and here's some examples. To run, he runs, we run. To sing, she sings, we sing. See how it follows those examples? All right. Verbs also have tense, and that refers to when the action took place, right? Y'all know this, past, present, future, right? See the highlight box on page 12. See in highlight box on page 12. That shows you just some tense. Okay? We're going to talk about all that more when we get into it. Okay? Any questions? Okay, pronouns. Y'all, some of my sophomores have a hard time with pronouns, and pronouns should be so easy. Pronouns are what replace nouns. Here's a twofer. You know what a twofer is? 2 for 1. All right, so the ACT likes to ask sometimes in reading and sometimes in English about point of view. Look at page 12 and let's talk about point of view. What is point of view? Look, I'm at the bottom of page 12. What's point of view? From the perspective that a story is told, right? So if they use pronouns like I or we, what point of view is that? First person, right? Because the narrator is included. If they use like you, it's what? Considered what? Second, very good. And then if it's she, it, one, the narrator's outside of the action, then it's considered third person. Don't miss in English or reading. That's what I mean by this is a twofer. Knowing this could get you a point both on the reading and on the English section. So they could ask you in a reading section, what point of view is this story told from? But they also could ask you in an English passage, what point of view or what voice is being used in this passage? Because you have passages in both. Okay, any questions? Okay, so everybody, I'm pouring a bunch of information and you make sure that it's reactivating if you already know it and that you're remembering it. I, first person. You, second person. She, he, they, third person. Everybody got it? Okay, moving on. Here are prepositions. I have for you a preposition card. If you want to memorize these prepositions, I will listen to you say them and I will give you 10 points on any test that you take this quarter, okay? It's bonus, okay? My English class is going to have to do it for a grade. So see, Ellie, you could get 10 point bonus in here for something you got to do for English anyway. The reason why I think it is valuable for you to memorize what the prepositions are is because it becomes a no-brainer. You can find a prepositional phrase in a heartbeat. They love on the English ACT to throw prepositional phrases in between the subject and verb and try to confuse you. Yes?
So whenever we say these to you, do we have to use it on the next test we take, or can we wait till the end of the quarter and then our lowest test grade we can add it to that?
You can add it to any one you want.
Okay.
And you can say it to me anytime you want before the end of the quarter. And the quarter ends, I think, the first week of October. So you've got about a month. So if you want, and you can come in and you can say, Ms. Reuters, I'm ready to say, oh, y'all, I never get through everything I want to get through. Okay, so tonight for homework, you were supposed to have proportions and ratios, but just scrap that because I didn't get to it at all. So we'll do that. We'll do that tomorrow, and we'll finish up hopefully chapter 1. Okay, everybody good? All right. Jack, I keep calling you Jack. Eric, I put this is your answer sheet. You should have the test. You should have the book this one. So all I want you to do tonight for homework is go through the ones that you missed, reread the passage, and find the right answer. Underline it in the passage and write the new answers. And any you get right the second go around, I'll add to this. All right? So you'll do that tonight.
You want this light on?
Thank you. And I can stop this. Y'all have a good day.